We're here at Rockin Thunder, Edmonton, Alberta. I'm joined by the Trews, who are about to go on the stage later today, 4 o'clock, inaugural festival, and what a lineup. You know, you guys are playing with some Canadian bands today, Default and Sam Roberts Band, and Weezer and Stone Temple Pilots. So thanks for joining us here, guys, and what's it mean to you to be on a bill like that?
It's really cool. I mean, we've had the privilege of sharing the stage with all of these bands on different occasions. Like, we played with Sam Roberts a lot over the years. We played with Stone Temple Pilots a couple years ago in Newfoundland. We did a tour with Weezer, and we played with them on a few other festivals. And Default we played with back in the day. So it's kind of cool to just be on the bill with all these guys we know, and it's going to be a great show.
We came down last night and watched Def Leppard. We landed a little late. We were hoping to catch more of the show, but our flight was delayed. It was great. They were a lot of fun, you know. Like,
they sounded amazing, didn't they?
A lot of fun.
On point. And
yeah.
Sounds great.
Something to strive for is
certainly the longevity is something to strive for. And we noticed like the amount of Jack and I were talking about it, the amount of people that are like reliving like how much it meant to them because it was their music from their youth, you know, and how the power of nostalgia. And to see all those old Def Leppard tees in the audience, it was pretty cool.
But one thing I noticed too is a lot of the old tees from the gray hair, but also a lot of young kids, youngsters wearing those t-shirts, and I'm sure you guys get the same thing.
It's an interesting time because kids, everybody can just discover music whenever, wherever now. It's not being like kind of dictated through the filter of like a monoculture thing. So kids are discovering Def Leppard, and it's just as new to them as anything else. It's all just on the platform of Spotify, and so I think that's actually really cool. And we have a little bit of that going on too in our own little way. So
a lot of that stuff gets passed down in movie soundtracks these days because it's guys our age who are making the movies who grew up with that music, and then they put it in the soundtrack.
Yeah, I noticed that too with shows. I know my daughter, she's 18 now, and she grew up watching Stranger Things. So there's been a lot of tunes that have kind of been relived, came to life. Right?
Yeah, Kate Bush shows them a lot.
I love the biggest Metallica song is rightfully Master of Puppets again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they got that right, didn't they?
The best Metallica song. So
absolutely. So speaking of music and speaking of old music, but I want to talk to you guys about new music that is due out October 24th. The Bloody Light, your guys' 8th studio album. Talk to me about that. That's so exciting.
Well, we're super jacked about it. All this, the Breakdown went number 1 earlier this year, and that was like a really big deal for us. This, to have another number 1 20 some years in. And the songs have been working really well live, and we're super excited about it. An album we finished up at the end of last year with our buddies in the Glorious Sons, Brett and Jay. They co-produced it, and we're really excited. I mean, it's going to be cool to have a brand new record out.
As much, I've said this before, but as much as you get better at certain elements of making music in the studio over the years, it doesn't get easier to make records necessarily, especially if you're trying to hold yourself to a high standard. And this record took a lot of doing to get to the finish line, and I feel like it was well worth the lift. I think it's like a really healthy batch of songs, but we had a lot of fits and starts, and
trials and tribulations.
Glad we got there, and I have to credit the Emmons brothers for being the sober second thought of our creative endeavors, even though they weren't sober.
While being not sober.
I was going to say, I bet
they were the unsober second thought. But you know what? They're razor sharp instincts when it comes to what they want to hear, what they like as far as the gut punch of a rock tune. They have razor sharp instincts,
and they were probably the biggest Trews fans that we've ever worked with as producers, because the history of us and the Glorious Sons actually goes back to John-Angus discovering them and producing their first couple of records, which were huge. And we actually took them out on their first major national tour, and they've always been like little brothers to us. And they went on to have incredible success, and they kind of had a full circle moment. And Brett, very talented guy, was listening to a lot of the music. We always have shared music with the Sons over the years, and they play us their stuff as well. And Brett just asked John-Angus one foggy night in downtown Toronto, "Can I produce one song?" And John-Angus said, "Yeah, sure." At that point, we were just like, "Look, we're just going to try a bunch of different things." And that first song was a co-production of a song called "The Bloody Light," and we were all like, "Okay, this is it." After this many years of making music, you got to know when you have it, and we knew we had it with that. And then we just started. Whenever our two bands' schedules had free time, we'd get together and record another song, and that's how the record got made.
That's amazing. It seems to be, you seem to really listen to the music, listen to the vibe, because it doesn't sound like it was an expected thing. You never planned to work with Glorious Sons and do that, right? It just happened organically, right?
Yeah, we didn't think Brett Emmons was going to be the producer we needed, but it turns out he was.
Yeah, got to stay flexible. That's like the takeaway from a life in this line of work. You do got to stay flexible. You know, you never know where the best idea is going to come from. You know, you never know where the next gig's going to come from. You got to pivot a lot and stay flexible.
100%. And you mentioned that you've already played some of these new tunes, some of the tracks. You can already stream some of the singles.
Yeah, 4 out.
Yeah, 4 out already. I wanted to ask you guys that. So, like, obviously you guys can play, you know, Not Ready to Go, or So She's Leaving, like, blindfolded in your sleep or whatever. But with these new tunes, you know, how does that preparation, especially when you're heading on stage, you probably have to focus in a little bit more.
It's great. Playing the new songs it really tells you what those songs are about when you put them in front of a crowd. And so far so good, because sometimes it goes the other way. You know, you start playing the new stuff, you're like, oh, we're gonna just play the new stuff from now on and no more old songs. Then you get in front of like festival crowds and you realize pretty damn quick we better start playing some old stuff again. But these songs are fitting in real nicely, and there's no people heading to the bars during them, so I'm really happy about that. And The Breakdown was a bona fide kind of hit single, so that feels really good to have one of those. And so far so good. They're surviving the test of the road test. New ears and not necessarily just Trews shows, like we're doing like festivals where people know just the hit songs, and so, but those are going all good.
I wanted to ask you guys this, and I'll be curious to hear Jack's perspective as an outsider. So we've already touched on kind of the brotherly theme. Obviously you guys are brothers. And I was thinking about this the other day when we knew we were going to be chatting with you guys today. Obviously around the same time Oasis got back together, and as a rock music fan, and everybody knows that story, I just wanted to ask, like, talk about that brotherly connection and how you guys have, you know, been able to obviously make it work. But there has to be some trying times, sitting at Thanksgiving dinner or something and, you know, passing the gravy over, like, hey, here's the gravy, man. But, like, why didn't you hit that note, Colin? Come on. But, like, talk to me about that connection, how you guys make that work.
Well, like, my mom used to babysit Jack when he was like 2 years old, right? So he lived down the road from us out in the boondocks in Antigonish.
Right.
So he's been around just as long.
An adopted brother.
Yeah,
right?
adopted brother. But, you know, it's got its ups and downs. And, like, overall, like, we've always kind of prioritized just trying to be a great band. And we kind of just, that's been our guiding principle. I mean, you know, we never got, like, maybe if there was $1 billion on the line and we're getting back to, you know, maybe it'd be different, but we're like a hardworking band that we're like kind of journeyman in that way. And I think we kind of keep our egos in check, and if they're not in check, they definitely get put in check by forces of the world.
I think that's double-edged in a way that doesn't get focused on enough. Like, people tend to focus on the negative elements of having your brother in the band, whether it be the Davies brothers or the Robinsons or the
there's been
Oasis.
A lot of bad examples.
And then the DeLeo brothers are probably one of the good examples here today. But people focus on the negative part. But knowing some of these guys, like, we know the Robinson brothers, and, like, people, they don't tend to focus on the fact that, like, when those guys sing in harmony, it's perfect because they're coming from the same place. I don't mean perfect pitch. I mean, like, culturally perfect. Like, they're coming. It's called blood harmony. And, like, when Noel and Liam share the lead on Acquiesce, nobody questions why everybody's hair stands up. It's like, well, it's probably involved with that. But they focus on but they can't get along. It's like, but the media loves to talk about that. But what about all the positives that come from Ray and Dave Davies, you know what I mean? Like, and all these different things. So the problem is, you know each other too well, right? And like, every little thing bugs you, you know? But then the plus is, you know each other so well, you know what I mean? And so you can also bury the hatchet, get back to work, you know, and there's that whole blood harmony element of it too, you know?
And it's like, like growing up with the same music and sharing all the music, like, growing up, I think that's a big part of it too.
I think the other thing that doesn't get focused on either, because we worked with the Emmons brothers too, so it was like,
forgot those guys.
There was sets of brothers in the studio. It's like how difficult it must be for everybody in the band that isn't the brother, because the brothers, there's a natural power thing happening, because, like, you know, there's the two brothers that, you know, whereas if it was just one of us with everybody else just being not a brother, it'd be a different dynamic, you know. I never felt that because I was always one of the brothers, but when I was with the Gloria Sons and watching them kind of interact with their people, I was like, oh yeah, okay. So there's like that power dynamic of having the two brothers, and then they're gonna fight like cats and dogs, but they're gonna make up because your whole life has been like that. Whereas if you have a fight like that with like a guy you only just know, like that ends bands, you know what I mean? no one ever focuses on the other guys that have to deal with the brothers, and I feel bad for them sometimes.
Right. So I would ask Jack that, but you mentioned he's already an adopted brother, so you're right in the mix anyway, right?
Well, we were on national TV today, and he said there's not a day he wakes up where he's not just grateful that he knows.
No doubt. Well, I'm glad you guys focus on that positive. That's what I was hoping that you would, and that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
We talked about longevity earlier, about Def Leppard, and with you guys are getting there. 8 studio albums, 20 plus years, right? So you guys are doing something right, and I think that natural connection that you have is obviously working out. So
shared vision, like the idea of like packing it in isn't something we're interested in, so like keeping the wheels on the bus becomes a priority.
100%. So, last question. I know, obviously, with the new album coming out later in the fall, I'm sure I know you have some dates already, a lot of festival dates this summer, but I'm sure we can anticipate some more dates in correlation with the album, right?
There will be tours, and there will be shows, and there will be a new record, and there will be a new single.
Yeah, so we're doing another single at the end of August, and probably drop one more before the final bundle comes, and then a new 12-song record on October 24th. And then it's not announced yet, but we'll be announcing a bunch of 2026 touring plans in support of the record.
Yeah, perfect. Jack, Colin, John-Angus from the Trews, thank you very much for joining the SWOMP podcast today, and have a blast up there on the stage at Rockin Thunder.
Thanks for having us.